Guess what? Living the high life ain't all it's cracked up to be. Yeah, me, the queen of Glendale's gilded cage, married to the king of the stock market. Our mansion? A stage for the perfect life. Every smile for the cameras a well-rehearsed lie. My days? A whirlwind of diamonds, designer dresses, and parties where the champagne never stopped flowing. But let me tell you, those sparkles? They don't warm a cold bed. The first crack in the facade? Realizing the echo in our mansion matched the hollow in my heart. My husband, Mr. Big Shot, always jet-setting, closing deals in Tokyo, networking in New York. Me? I was just another trophy on his shelf, only taken down for special occasions. Nights spent in silk sheets, alone, the silence so loud it was deafening. Then, bam, at this artsy gallery downtown, I met him. Not my usual scene, but there I was, sipping wine that tasted more like freedom than grapes. He was the opposite of everything I knew. Wild hair, tattoos, a smirk that said he knew life's secrets. His paintings? Alive with colors that spoke to my soul. One conversation, and I was hooked. He saw me, not the facade. Our affair? It was wildfire, dangerous and all-consuming. The guilt? Ate at me like acid. I couldn't juggle the lies, the love, the longing for something real. So, I did the unthinkable. I decided to come clean to my husband. Naive, right? I thought we could deal with it like adults. I imagined tears, yelling, maybe even understanding. But I believed we'd find a way through it, together or apart, but with some dignity intact. The night before he left for another one of his globe-trotting trips, I left him the letter. My confession, my plea for understanding, or at least a conversation. But what did I get? Silence. Cold, devastating silence. He left, not a word, not a glance. His response? A letter left on the marble countertop, his elegant handwriting spelling out my worst fears. I wish you happiness in your new path, it read, a legal document attached, cutting me off, pushing me out, divorcing me from his life and bank accounts. Shock? Understatement of the century. I felt like I'd been thrown into the deep end, no lifeline, no warning. My perfect world? Shattered in one fell swoop. The mansion felt like a mausoleum, each room a tomb for my failed dreams. In desperation, I turned to my artist, my lover, my supposed escape. But when I needed him most, his eyes, once so full of fire, turned icy with fear. I can't give you the life you're used to, he stammered, his passion now replaced with practicality. I'm not him. I can't be him. And just like that, the fantasy faded, leaving me stranded in a reality I wasn't prepared to face. So there I was, stripped of my title, my security, my love, standing in the wreckage of my life. The queen of nothing, ruler of ruins. And let me tell you, hitting rock bottom? It's not just a saying. It's a bone-crushing, soul-sapping reality check. But guess what? The story doesn't end here. No, this is just the beginning. Because when you've got nothing left to lose, that's when you're truly dangerous. And me? I was ready to fight back. Who knew the courtroom could feel colder than the loneliest parts of my mansion? There I was, sitting across from the man I once promised to spend my life with, watching his team of sharks in suits tear my life apart piece by piece. Insufficient evidence for such a substantial claim, one of them sneered, talking about my alimony like it was pocket change. Every attempt I made to secure what I thought was rightfully mine got smacked down harder than the gavel of the judge. Then, the whispers started. You'd think high society had better things to gossip about, but nope, my downfall was the season's hottest topic. Invitations dried up faster than tears on my pillow. Friends I've known for years suddenly acted like I was a ghost as they passed by. My social standing? Obliterated. Just like that, I was on the outside looking in, nose pressed against the glass of a world I was no longer welcome in. Desperation does funny things to you. It makes the unthinkable suddenly very thinkable. I knew things, dirty little secrets about my husband's business deals that could make or break him. So, I did what I had to do. I reached out, tried to use those secrets as leverage. Think of the implications. I warned him over the phone, voice steady, heart racing. But all I got was silence, then a click. Betrayed by my own naivety, again. And as if that wasn't a low enough blow, my lover, my supposed partner in crime, turned tail. It's getting too risky, he whispered one night, his silhouette disappearing into the darkness, leaving me clutching at shadows. Just like that, abandoned, with no knight in shining armor coming to save me from the dragon. It was just me, alone, facing the beast with no sword, no shield, nothing. But life. Oh, it has a funny way of throwing you a bone when you least expect it. Out of the shadows stepped a figure. Someone from my husband's past so shrouded in mystery, I wasn't sure if he was a guardian angel or another devil come to collect. I can help you, he said, voice gravelly with the weight of secrets. But I need something in return. A vendetta against my husband, a mutual enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Or so I hoped. With nothing left to lose, I dove headfirst into the murky waters of corporate espionage. This mysterious ally? He knew things, showed me the ropes, taught me how to lurk in the shadows, listen to whispers, and look for the signs. I was in over my head, learning to navigate a world so foreign, it might as well have been another planet. But desperation breeds determination. I was going to bring my husband down, even if it meant playing dirty. The evidence gathering was like something out of a spy movie. Late-night stakeouts, covert meetings, cryptic messages. Every piece of damning evidence I secured felt like a victory, a step closer to reclaiming my life. But with every move I made, danger lurked closer. Unknown assailants, shadowy figures in the night, threats left on burner phones. It was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, and I was determined not to be the prey. Through it all, I learned something important. I didn't need a knight in shining armor. I had myself, and damn, I was stronger than I ever thought possible. Every threat dodged, every piece of evidence secured, it all built me up, piece by broken piece. I was down, but not out. Beaten, but not broken. I was ready to fight back, and heaven help anyone who stood in my way. Just when you think you've got the upper hand, life slaps you in the face with a betrayal so cold, it makes the Arctic look like a tropical paradise. There I was, all set to take down the empire of lies my husband built, with what I thought was a trump card up my sleeve. That card? A mysterious ally from his past, ready to spill the beans. Or so I thought. Turns out, he was the joker in the deck, playing me all along. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. Whispers that didn't add up, meetings shrouded in too much shadow. But desperation blinds you. When he sat me down, that smug look on his face, and said, "It's been fun, but I've got a better offer," my world didn't just crumble, it imploded. He was on my husband's payroll, a double agent in a game I didn't even know we were playing. My grand plan? It was just a cleanup operation for them, using me to tie up loose ends. Feeling like a fool, I scrambled to salvage what I could, but it was too late. My moves, my contacts, every step I'd taken was now an open book for my enemies. They came for me, not with lawsuits or threats, but with cold, hard steel and the intent to silence me permanently. Dodging an assassination attempt sounds thrilling in stories, but living it? It's a nightmare. A dark alley, a glint of metal, a struggle for life. It felt like a scene from a movie, except the fear was real, the danger, imminent. I barely escaped, my heart pounding a frantic SOS. Cornered and with nowhere left to turn, I did the only thing I could, I went straight to the lion's den. My husband, the architect of my demise, sat in his office, a fortress of glass and steel. I had nothing but the truth, a sliver of evidence I managed to keep from our treacherous ally. Confronting him was like talking to a marble statue, cold and unyielding. "You've lost, and you know it," he said, not even a hint of emotion. It was clear. He was untouchable, wrapped in layers of power and influence that made my evidence seem like child's play. But I wasn't going down without a fight. In a last, desperate move, I tried to go public, to shout the truth from the rooftops and let the world see the monster behind the mask. It was foolish, really. His security was on me in seconds, a well-oiled machine of suppression. My evidence? Confiscated. My voice? Silenced. It was over before it even began. The fallout was nuclear. Legal battles raged, but without my evidence, I was a ship taking on water fast. The court's gavel was the final nail in my coffin, sentencing me to a future behind bars, stripped of everything I once held dear. Assets? Gone. Freedom? A memory. And then, the letter came. Not a declaration of victory, but a silent farewell from the man I once loved. "I wish you peace," it read, a cold closure to our twisted tale. Sitting in my cell, the weight of my choices crashing down on me, I had nothing but time to reflect on the whirlwind that was my life. Every decision, every misstep, played on loop in my mind. The isolation was suffocating, a solitary confinement of the soul. I realized then the depth of my miscalculations, the irreversible impact of my actions. My quest for vengeance, for truth, had cost me everything. There's something about hitting rock bottom that clears your vision. Maybe it's the lack of distractions, or perhaps it's the sharp, cold slap of reality. Either way, as I stood at the narrow window of my cell, the iron bars casting long shadows across the floor, I couldn't help but reflect on the twisted journey that led me here. My life, once a whirlwind of luxury and deceit, had been reduced to a cautionary tale, a story of ambition, betrayal, and the high cost of revenge over reconciliation. Outside these walls, my downfall had taken on a life of its own. Whispers in the wind, stories shared in hushed tones over clinking glasses. My name, once synonymous with grace and power, had become a byword for folly. I imagined the chatter, the speculation, painting me as a tragic heroine or a foolish woman, depending on who you asked. It was strange, thinking of my legacy being shaped without me, my actions reduced to moral lessons in the mouths of strangers. Meanwhile, my husband, the silent architect of my demise, continued his life untouched. His business, a juggernaut of success, plowed through scandal after scandal with Teflon resilience. His personal life, though, remained a mystery, a carefully curated image that revealed nothing, a testament to his mastery of the art of silence. The contrast between our fates couldn't be starker, and yet, there was a part of me that wondered if he truly felt victorious or if his silence was a fortress hiding his own ruins. In a final, enigmatic twist, I heard from one of the few friends I had left on the outside that he was seen visiting an unknown grave. The image haunted me, the stoic businessman standing before a headstone, a solitary figure in the midst of his empire. It was a reminder that our story was far from simple, threaded with loss and secrets that went deeper than anyone outside could understand. It left me with questions that burned brighter than my anger, hinting at layers of our saga yet to be uncovered. But life inside prison waits for no one, and dwelling on the past or the unknowable offered little solace. I had to rebuild, to forge a new existence from the ashes of my old life. The first few weeks were a blur of adjustment, a daily battle against despair and bitterness. Yet, amidst the monotony and the harsh realities of my new environment, I found a strength I didn't know I possessed. I began to form connections, tentative at first, then with more confidence. Other women, each with their own stories of downfall, became my allies, my friends. I shared my knowledge, the bits and pieces of the world outside that I carried with me, and in return, they shared their survival strategies, their hopes, and their laughter. Together, we formed a network, a makeshift family forged by circumstance rather than blood. It was a strange sort of empowerment, finding agency and camaraderie in a place designed to strip you of both. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I realized that my life hadn't ended, it had simply changed course. The woman who once navigated social galas with ease now maneuvered the intricacies of prison politics. The skills that once served to entertain and charm were now tools for survival and support. It was a humbling transformation, but not an entirely unwelcome one. Just when I thought my story was etched in stone, along came a twist straight out of a legal thriller. Picture this. Me, in my not-so-glam prison blues, sitting across from a young lawyer who looked like he'd just stepped out of a courtroom drama, sharp suit, sharper gaze. "I've been following your case," he said, his voice brimming with a mix of outrage and excitement. "Your sentence. It's a miscarriage of justice." His words were a lifeline thrown into the murky waters of my despair. Our quest for an appeal kicked off like a rocket. This wasn't just about combing through legal documents. It was about dismantling the narrative that had been carefully constructed to paint me as the villain. Every meeting, every conversation, we dug deeper, uncovering flaws and biases in the trial that had been glossed over. "Look at this," he'd say, pointing to discrepancies in the evidence, "it's clear you were set up." Then came the game changer, new evidence. Not just any evidence, but the kind that sends shockwaves through the foundations of a case. We found traces of manipulation in the shadows, fingerprints that suggested my actions had been steered by someone else, someone with a vested interest in my downfall. My husband's name hovered over us, unspoken but omnipresent. As we peeled back the layers, a startling revelation came to light. The mysterious ally, my so-called partner in crime turned betrayer, hadn't acted alone. He was a pawn, coerced into playing his role by my husband. "It's all connected," my lawyer mused, his eyes alight with the thrill of the hunt. "Your husband orchestrated this whole charade." But facts and evidence weren't enough. We needed the court of public opinion on our side. So, I stepped into the spotlight once more, not as a socialite, but as a woman fighting for her truth. Interviews, press releases, any platform that would have me, I used them all to share my story. The narrative began to shift, slowly at first, then gaining momentum. People started to see me not as the perpetrator, but as the victim of a much larger game. Public sentiment began to sway in our favor. Letters of support, social media campaigns, even protests calling for my release. It was overwhelming. This tide of solidarity from strangers who now saw the injustice of my situation. And then, the breakthrough we'd been hoping for. Delving into my husband's business dealings, we uncovered illegal activities so brazen, it was a wonder they'd stayed hidden for so long. This could change everything, my lawyer whispered, hardly daring to believe our luck. The evidence was irrefutable, linking my husband to crimes far beyond what anyone had suspected. Each revelation, each piece of uncovered truth, was a step toward my freedom. The appeal process was no longer just a legal battle. It had become a crusade against the corruption and manipulation that had led to my imprisonment. With the public outcry growing louder and the evidence mounting against my husband, the scales of justice began to tip. For the first time since this nightmare began, hope wasn't just a flicker, it was a blazing fire. Just like that, with the bang of a judge's gavel and a flurry of papers, I was out. Freedom tasted different than I remembered, bittersweet, tinged with the residue of battles fought and lost. Stepping out of the confines that had defined my existence for what felt like an eternity, I was met with a world that had unapologetically moved on without me. The skyline hadn't changed, but everything else had. The air felt different, the people around me strangers in a life I used to command with ease. Starting over wasn't just daunting, it was like standing at the edge of a cliff with no safety net. My reputation was in tatters, my assets gone, my connections severed. But the real weight was the haunting past, the whispers that followed me like shadows. Every glance seemed loaded, every interaction a reminder of the fall from grace I'd endured. There goes the woman who. They'd murmur, their voices trailing off as I passed by. But I was done being a victim, done letting my past define me. It was time for a new chapter, a new identity. Drawing from the depths of my experiences, I began to lay the foundation for a consultancy firm dedicated to fighting legal injustices. My past, once a millstone, became my most valuable asset. I had lived through the system's failures, navigated its complexities, and come out the other side with a story that could inspire change. This wasn't about revenge, it was about transformation. My focus shifted from settling scores to empowering those ensnared in legal battles with nowhere to turn. My consultancy quickly became a beacon for the wronged and forgotten, a place where their voices could be amplified and their cases fought with the tenacity of someone who had walked a mile in their shoes. As I rebuilt my life, piece by painstaking piece, the empire my husband had so meticulously constructed began to show cracks. The legal and financial fallout from the exposure of his illegal activities was a slow poison, eating away at the foundations of his once untouchable status. Watching from afar, I felt no joy in his downfall. Vengeance had lost its allure. My battles now were fought in courtrooms for those who had suffered as I had. Then, in an ironic twist of fate, I ran into my former lover. The artist whose passion had once set my world alight, now dimmed and weary from the years. He stood before me, a shadow of the man I'd fallen for, seeking forgiveness and a second chance. But the person he once knew was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and wholly focused on a future that had no place for past flames. Our encounter was a stark reminder of how far I'd come, of the bridges burned and the lessons learned along the way. He was part of a chapter that had long since been closed, a ghost from a past life that no longer defined me. I wished him well and walked away, leaving behind the last vestiges of the person I once was. My journey from socialite to pariah to advocate hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. In the crucible of my trials, I had found a purpose that transcended personal vendettas and fleeting desires. I had emerged not just as a survivor, but as a catalyst for change, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with resilience and a heart steadfast in the pursuit of justice. The day I told him no, the air crackled with the finality of a door slamming shut on a past I'd outgrown. "I'm sorry, but that chapter of my life is closed," I said, my voice steady, my resolve unbreakable. It was a rejection not just of him, but of who I had been, a woman defined by her relationships, her mistakes. Now, I was the architect of my own destiny, building a future on the foundations of hard-learned lessons and resilience. My consultancy firm, once a fledgling hope, had blossomed into a national force for justice. The name that had been dragged through the mud was now spoken with reverence, a symbol of hope for the wrongfully convicted. Each case won, each life reclaimed, was a brick in the edifice of change I was constructing. My story, shared far and wide, had become a rallying cry for reform, a beacon guiding the lost and the wronged to safe harbor. But success, as I'd learned, always came with its shadows. My husband, once the king of his empire, saw my rising influence as a threat to the precarious balance of power he clung to. The legal battles, which had once been our private war, spilled into the public arena, a chess game with human lives as the pieces. He plotted in the darkness, schemes designed to undermine my work, to silence the voice I had fought so hard to amplify. The showdown, when it came, wasn't with guns blazing or in the dramatic confines of a courtroom. It was a battle of wits, a duel of influence and leverage, fought in the court of public opinion in the quiet corridors of power. My firm, my team, stood with me, a shield wall of conviction and dedication. We countered each move he made with the truth, with unassailable evidence, with the stories of those we'd helped. It was a war of attrition, and we were armed with righteousness. In the end, it wasn't a single dramatic moment that heralded his downfall, but a series of small, inevitable collapses. The empire he'd built on secrets and lies crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. His arrest was a quiet affair, the final whisper of a titan's fall. And in that silence, there was vindication, not just for me, but for all who had suffered under his reign. From the ashes of that long, hard fight, I emerged not just victorious, but transformed. I became more than just a survivor of my circumstances, I became a symbol of resilience and redemption. My platform, once a pulpit from which I sought justice for myself, now championed systemic change, advocating for those caught in the gears of a flawed system. Yet, amidst the accolades and the acclaim, there was a space where joy should have been, a silence where laughter used to live. The cost of my journey was etched in the lines of my face, in the quiet moments when the weight of loss pressed close. I had won, yes, but at the expense of my marriage, of a part of myself that would never be whole again. In the solitude of my office, looking out over the city that had been the stage for my greatest triumphs and most bitter defeats, I began to write. My book wasn't just a memoir, it was a testament, a guide, and a warning. It was the distilled essence of my journey, from the depths of despair to the pinnacle of advocacy. Through my words, I sought to inspire, to educate, and to empower others to navigate the treacherous waters of betrayal and legal battles, to find their own path to personal transformation. As I penned the final words, I realized that my legacy would be defined not by the battles I had fought, but by the lives I had touched, the changes I had wrought. I was a fighter, not because I had never been knocked down, but because I had always risen, stronger and more determined. My legacy was one of strength, of purpose, and, above all, of hope. In the reflection of the glass, amidst the glow of the setting sun, I saw not just the woman I had become, but the promise of the woman I was still